Welcome to Round the Table. We have a good one for you here today. The topic is actual plays in the art of performance. I'm your host, Syzer, pronouns he, him. And with me today, I've got Corey is going to be co-hosting. We've worked out some questions for everybody ahead of time, and we're planning to have a good one today. So we're going to start with introductions. Just going to go down the line, and I want you to say your name, your pronouns, your show, your character name, and your character pronouns. So let's start off with Dusty.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dusty. My pronouns are they, she, and I am from Tales of Three. My character's name is Ivy Nightbreeze Tinkerfay, and her pronouns are she, her.
All right, and let's just go to Corey.
All right. So I am Corey Griffin, pronouns he, they. My show name is Tales of Yvard. I am our MC, which is for our system is your GM, DM. So I do not have a character name or character pronouns. Or I have all of them, depending on how you want to word that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Neil.
Hey folks, my name is Neil, my pronouns are he, him, and my show is FeyEarth. I'm the creator of that TTRPG. I'm, like Corey, also a GM, so my character is God, who has all the pronouns.
Even the ones we haven't thought of yet.
Yes, all pronouns.
All right, Suzy.
Hi, I'm Suzy. My pronouns are she, her. I play in FeyEarth. My character's name is Sylvia Bauer, and her pronouns are also she, her.
Okay. Wayra.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wayra. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm on the Rainbow Dice Club, which is a Tales of Three as well. I play Varys, whose pronouns are he, they, on that show.
Okay. And last but not least, Timbo, the wizard.
Hey everybody, I'm Timbo the Wizard. My pronouns are he, him. I run a couple of different shows on my channel, Tales of the Riot Nexus and Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Hallister's Game, as well as play the character Strider Otto Reed, who is going to Sigil Community College on our other series that we run on the channel. That's run by my good friend, the Seshcast, aka Druid.
All right. Thank you all for being here today to talk about actual plays and the art of performance.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Corey, do you want to start us off with a question?
Most definitely. So the first question that we're going to talk about here today is, do you come from like a theater performance or an improv background?
And we'll just go down the line. Here's what we're going to do. If you do, say I.
Hi.
Yes.
I.
I.
Okay.
When I was in school, yeah.
That counts. You know. Yeah.
Oh God, I hope that counts. That's what I was counting for.
Oh, school for me was a long time ago, that's all.
Yeah, I know, right? I think I'm the eldest one here, but yeah.
I don't know.
42?
I am the oldest on here, I'm 43.
Oh, goodness.
I'm 41,
Hey.
so...
All right.
So to kind of follow that up, how did this change your approach to your individual shows, do you think?
Yeah, whether or not you had a performance background.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody, feel free to jump in.
I
think that's a-
suppose for me, I've been gaming for a long time. I've been playing TTRPGs for about 20 years. In various different systems. For me, it was always my question was always, what would my character do in any scenario, and I would act based on that. But now that I'm in an actual play, I'm kind of, yeah, but what would make a good story? So I'm running it through the filter of what would my character do, but then I'm thinking that but I'm very conscious of what would be entertaining to people who might be watching, you know, and whether or not they would be able to see my character's reasoning behind, or how I would be able to portray. Okay, I know this might seem a bit crazy, but my character is doing this because, you know, without having to like do an exposition dump.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, normally in a typical home game, you've got sort of the GM could be considered to be one of the performer, and the players could be considered to be the audience in a way, But that
Yeah, kind of heckling or interacting, and that kind of you could have that dynamic at the table.
but not in an actual play. You've got an actual audience in the room so it turns everybody into performers. I would say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point because when you're talking about like an actual play performance versus your regular bog standard non-stream to the public game, right? You are including the players of the audience as well as the game master. But when you bringing your game to the public, you have to go through the mental like jump of being like, well, the audience is also going to be consuming this piece of media as well. How do I make it compelling and interesting for them, despite them not being an interactive force in the media necessarily, right?
Yeah. Does anybody have an example of something where, like a time where that you were really cognizant of that, and it changed the way that you maybe played something in particular?
I think the biggest thing that comes to my mind is how we ran combats.
Hmm.
When you run a combat in a home game, you're just like, oh, I cast ice knife. But when you're doing it for public consumption, you have to be like, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is how it manifests coming out of my character's hand. This is how it manifests if the person has to take half damage. How does that look? Because you can't just be like, oh, they take half damage. Why did they take half damage? Other than the fact that they rolled well. You have to really take roles into consideration and figure out how that works into the world instead of copping out with just like, oh, it doesn't hit. Oh well, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
think.
that. Oh, go on, Suzy.
Sorry, no, you.
I was just going to say that's a really great point because I feel like the use of like there's so much extra detail and extra information, extra interesting information that you can throw in there as the game master, but also as the player to be like, why did I take half damage from this moment? What did me missing look like? And like, how does that inform the character that I'm playing, right?
I feel like it's especially important when you're doing a solely audio medium as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like our show is pretty much just consumed via podcast, not live. So it's equally, I think, much more important actually to make sure you're doing that.
I
Yeah.
know for
Yeah.
myself as the GM, when it comes specifically to combat, so I don't use battle maps in my stream, and that's purely for tech reasons. Every time I've tried, it's been a nightmare. Stuff stops syncing, and just bad shit happens. So then now we might have Roll20 up so that my players have a battle map that they can see to help them keep track of combat, but the viewers can't. So then I'm cognizant of this, and then as the GM, spending a lot more time describing not just what is happening in an individual encounter between a player and an enemy or vice versa, but also the actual scene itself. I'm having to spend a lot more time describing where characters are relative to each other, the space that they are in, how large it is, what it looks like, what type of a terrain it is, because it's being consumed by the viewer who doesn't have a battle map. Funnily enough, this year I had the opportunity to run a really fun mini campaign of FeyEarth on another stream called the Emerald Collective. It's actually one of, if not the, it's probably the biggest Irish TTRPG streaming platform. They're brilliant, awesome, great guys. Um, I didn't have to handle the tech. They have a tech person who handles the tech on the stream at all times, which meant we had a battle map. I was moving the miniatures around on Roll20, but the tech person was making sure that that overlay was synced with the Twitch stream and all the rest of that. So it was really interesting in that perspective, because from the viewer's perspective, they could clearly now see what was happening in a way they don't get to do on my stream, or previously when we did our first campaign it was a podcast. So as you were saying, with a podcast where it's pure audio, you are having to put much more, as the GM, way more emphasis on physically describing the scene, not just describing the moment of, okay, you hit with a fireball, what does it look like? Okay, they had resistance to this damage, what does it look like? You know.
And
We
what I
also had a similar. Oh, sorry.
no, please go ahead.
No, there was. We actually. I just. So in the case of FeyEarth, it's an alternate history. So like I'm not good at history at all, but I did a little bit of reading for FeyEarth. So like it's an alternate. So it's set around the time of the Franco-Prussian War, and we did actually have a really cool scene at one point because one of the characters was looking for their brother, who had been in the French army, and he'd gone missing, and we found him. And he was in this hospital, but he was so badly traumatized that he wasn't talking or anything. And my character had been in the Prussian army, and she basically turned around to the others and kind of, oh, why does he not have Hundermarken? Because I discovered in my read, well, myself and Neil discovered the Prussian army was the very first army to have official dog tags.
Mm.
Well, they didn't call them dog tags, but
They
the
call them
Prussians
Hundermarken, which
no, the
literally is the
no, the
German
Prussians
for
no, but the government didn't. The soldiers
yeah,
themselves called them Hundermarken,
which is where dog tags comes from.
dog tags. But the Prussian government really hated that, and the more they tried to quash it, the more they were called Hundermarken. So we got to have this like cool little, ooh, history. By the way, the Prussian army had this. So my character was kind of like, oh, why did you not? Why did you not have? How did you not know who he was? Does he not have like the Hundermarken? You know, so it's
Yeah.
kind of we've had like lots of little moments like that where we've done like little like history drops. You know,
That is nice. You can when you can fit in things that are
little
specific to
lore
your
drop.
lore
You
drop.
know,
Yeah.
and you
Just
have to
kind
do
of
more of those in an actual play, I think, because you have to assume the audience doesn't know all of that stuff.
Yeah.
just kind of circling back to the original question. I've been doing theater and improv for a really long time. And so it really helps when something kind of wild happens to be able to split on that dime, which I know a lot of you probably also have those types of background. I'm currently in an improv like show right now outside of this. So
Hmm.
having that other outside influence too, because it's really hard to improv when you've only got your like friends with you, understanding that this is also going to be going out to an audience. So you really have to be cognizant of that story that you're trying to tell while also remaining true to your own play style, you know?
It's interesting you say that. I had an amazing opportunity a few months back to record a mini campaign of FeyEarth with the cast of my favorite actual play. And I'm a guy who doesn't like actual plays, and it's a 5e actual play. I fucking hate 5e. Okay, with the Fire of a Thousand Suns, I hate that system so much. But this is an incredible actual play called they're called the Damsels in Distress. They are this wonderful group in from England, and their game it's set in Regency period England. So not like Fair, which is an alternate Earth. Theirs is actual Regency period, and they use 5e. Technically, they're using 5e mechanics. I had the opportunity to fly over to Winchester, and we spent a pretty intense 2.5 days recording a FeyEarth mini campaign with
Mm.
the gang from that group. Their backgrounds is all theater. That's how they know each other. They all went to university and studied theater. They're all like professionally trained actresses and became friends because they were in uni together, you know? So this was my first experience ever of running a game with a cast of players who all, not just one or two, they all have a theater background. So seeing them, the RP moments are incredible because as you were just saying about how trying to improv when it's your mates, well, when all the other people there have the same theater training that you have, the RP and the just the moments off of each other and the way one player would latch onto something that somebody said and then they would bounce off that and then someone would latch off what it was incredible. I've never experienced it before as a GM, and just the way they could just the way the dialogue flowed to really capture the scenes and bring them to life. It was just I'm really like it is coming out. We still working it out. It'll be end of January is when it's officially releasing, and we recorded just under 4 months of content in 2.5 days.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intense, but I can confirm, having listened to that particular AP, that Damsels in Dice Stress is
Yeah.
something that you want to check out, folks, if you haven't.
They're amazing. Yeah, but yeah, it was exactly what you were saying of the difference between being the one theater nerd at the table doing the weird improv shit versus being at a table of theater nerds where everybody's vibing off everybody else. Just incredible.
I also have quite a background in theater and improv. I was classically trained for about 8 years, um, and I'm starting to like delve a bit into voice acting. It's a little bit of a different ball game, but I will say that despite having that kind of background to it, you don't necessarily need a background in theater to be a great player. I think it helps for sure.
I personally think, and this is purely my own ignorant, uninformed opinion, but I do think very much for an AP, it makes a much bigger difference if your cast of players have a background in theater than if your GM has a background in theater. And
Oh,
that might
I
seem
would
a
agree with
bit,
that.
yeah, it might seem a bit counterintuitive, but ultimately the most important thing about being a GM is, can you think on your feet? Can you bullshit people without them realizing it? And are you organized? Those are the three most important things about being a GM. And a lot of the time, especially with an actual play, you as the GM don't want to be talking. You want to be talking as little as possible because you want your players to be doing all the talking. So if the players are all the theater nerds, let them go nuts, you know? And occasionally they'll be talking to one of your NPCs, cool. And if you have some cool, hot, sexy NPC they're all falling in love with, even better. But outside of that, it's like, I always think it makes such a big difference, more so for the players than for the GM to be the person with the background in theater.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not sure if anybody has listened to Wayra and I's podcast, but the premise of our podcast is we actually switch off the role of DM. So all three of us play the role of DM.
And all three of us are also the players.
Yeah. So it's that in of itself is very interesting because we all have to be on our toes with that too, while playing our characters at the same time.
And NPCs that come up. It's really fun though. It's a great time.
That's really cool. I've been doing like a Monster of the Week game in the back channel. That's not a public facing game where we've been rotating DMs and having different players jump into the role of DMs, even people who don't normally DM, which has been really exciting to play. So I can see doing that in like a public facing capacity being really really interesting too.
It's been a lot of fun. It's definitely been something that we've been working through. Um, we just hit 30 episodes that we've released. We've got more, obviously,
Woohoo!
in the backlog. But wow, when we decided to go that route, we took a couple months to figure it out. And that's where the improv part really came in. And thankfully, Ari and Wayra are both super organized. I'm not as much, but that's fine. I can roll with the punches.
You excel at like yes and improv though, so I feel like makes up for it.
It's just all about balancing, I think, at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I am curious, like, since all three of you are playing and all three of you are jamming, how do you separate and differentiate like that player knowledge and that game master knowledge when somebody is running something that you know as a player more about, but your character doesn't necessarily know about?
So I feel like that's where the acting comes into it, because we have to, as the players, react to some. We actually had a really funny moment with another character where this character was like pretending to not be able to do something, and a different NPC clocked it and went, "That's what you're doing." And that character was like, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not."
Excuse
But
me.
it's obvious to everybody else that that's what that character is doing. But the main characters haven't realized it because that's not what their skill set is to be able to identify that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So we know what's happening. That NPC knew what was happening, but we have to pretend like we don't.
Yeah, sometimes that could be hard because you're sitting there going,
Yeah, truly. And that's where that like you have to like even keel your voice and improv stuff and fill the
For
space because you don't want to just
sure.
blow it out and metagame yourself.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Working on a couple different levels there.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that is seems very interesting, and I haven't gotten very far into your show. To be completely honest, I haven't gotten very far into any of y'all shows, but I have at least watched one of everything
Well, thanks for
for everyone
watching
to
at
share.
in general though.
Yeah,
Well,
especially
Everything was
for
awesome.
us, we're like so far. Like as I was saying before we started recording, we have about 3, maybe 4 sessions left, and our campaign is done. So if
yeah,
you jumped onto ours, you're like tail end of a 2-year campaign. There's a lot of catching up to do.
right, and but again, I wanted to kind of understand kind of what I was walking into, right? Um, especially coming to ask questions for you all. Which we've gotten through 2 of them, which has been amazing. The next question that we have is going to be another A or nay, much like the first one was. So if you guys just let us know, uh, did you have what you would consider to be a lot of TTRPG experience before joining your show?
Yeah. Yay.
Yes.
I would say yes.
Yay.
A little. I don't think as much as most. I'd like maybe a combined 4 or 5 years of TTRPG experience.
That's still a pretty good chunk, I would say. You know.
If
Get,
4 or 5 years is a good chunk, then yes.
Yeah.
My gaming history is kind of weird in that I started gaming when I was around 10 in the mid 90s with second edition Gothaco,
yeah,
which
sounds
I
familiar.
played. Yeah, I played for about 5 years, and then I took a 20-year gap from gaming,
Oh
and
damn.
then got back into gaming in my early 30s. Now, by the time then, when it came to FeyEarth, I started working on the system because it's my own system that I've fully developed myself. It's not like based on another game. Um, Once I had the bare bones of it done, we started our home game to play test it, and then about 3 years into that, I think we started recording it as a pod. Was it 4 years? We started recording it as a podcast. So yeah, so it was kind of a mixed experience coming in.
It
And
definitely is a considerable amount of experience, though,
Mm.
in the gaming before you started your AP for sure.
Yeah, whereas
How
like
do
Suzy had 15 years experience at that stage,
yeah,
so
I
like
started. I went to my very first gaming convention in start
2001.
of 2003.
Oh, all right.
Hey, same year as
Um,
me.
I was in my first year of college, and I got dragged along to a gaming convention, and um, massively hungover and on about 4 hours sleep, I got dragged into a LARP, and I had no idea what was going on. Um, I was basically tripping balls on sleep deprivation, and the alcohol was still in my system. I was 19, so
Sure.
uh, and then from there, I went into TTRPGs. So about a year after that, I started into tabletop. So I played in lots of different systems. Like so, I
Yeah.
Shadowrun. Uh,
Right.
so,
So,
so don't ask me about Shadowrun, but like Heavy
Mhm.
Gear, Marvel, D&D 3.5, Fifth Ed, World of Darkness, so Changeling, Werewolf, Vampire, um, um,
um,
Fantasy Age, Titan's Grave, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then Fair.
Um, how do you guys think this changed your approach to your show? I don't know if you guys have maybe so like personally, I have a very wide range of experience levels in my show. Everything ranging from one of them who has played TTRPGs for almost as long as I have, which I started playing when I was 8 with my older brother. I'm 31 now, so um, and all the way down to someone who only started playing a little over a year ago.
Okay, yeah.
Um, how do you guys think that your experiences affect your approach to your individual shows?
I think for me specifically, I've been playing TTRPGs for about 7 or 8 years now. Most of what I do has been D&D. I started with 3.5, and what we really just focus on most is 5e. That's the basis of our podcast is 5e. But it is severely homebrewed in the way that we use the bare bones of 5e, but expand to what we want to do with it. Um, and it's been a lot of fun because we can take the knowledge that we've learned and use it as a guideline more so than a specific rule set. We like the way the mechanics of D&D works, so that's why we continue to use it. I've played Pathfinder 1 and 2. I've played a bunch of different indie TTRPGs as well. Monster of the Week, Blades in the Dark, that kind of stuff. And that's just what we kind of settled on at the end of the day. And it's been nice because we have all this knowledge of it, and so we can take that knowledge and be like, so maybe we do something different here. Maybe we're more vibes based. That's what we like to say is we're vibes based.
But also, you realize that the answer to an issue, it doesn't have to be combat, and sometimes it shouldn't be. Like if you're interacting with a character who's like the equivalent of, 20th level and you're level 5, getting into a combat with them is not the best idea. So you're gonna think, okay, well, I need to find another alternative. Whereas somebody who's new to gaming might not realize, oh, we don't, this doesn't have to be like a knockdown, drag out fight. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool.
Unless you're our group, and then it's sort of like a
Our
balls to the
group?
wall situation.
I'm sorry. Do you mean Ivy?
Well,
You
Ivy
specifically?
likes to just
You
charge
just
head
keep
in.
throwing stuff, and something's
She
gonna
just
stick.
throws ice
It's
knives,
fine.
and
It's
that's
fine.
like that's her
I
vibe.
will.
No?
I will say one of the cool things about having different like experience levels in our group is that like our newer player sometimes comes up with the best answers. So it's really interesting to watch that happen because like Dusty and I have played D&D for a lot longer than Ari has. And sometimes Ari pulls things out of the blue that are so out of pocket but are like the perfect solution. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? What the hell?
we have the exact same thing in our group. One of our players, Polina, who's a dear friend of mine, her experience of gaming before FeyEarth was she'd played in, I think, one or maybe two marathon sessions of 5e with her ex and his friends, and didn't really know what was going on. It was sort of fun, but like, yeah, whatever. And then I invited her to play FeyEarth with me, telling her like this is going to be streamed on Twitch. So she came into this very much with the mentality of, please be kind, please be gentle. I am the baby gamer here,
She's a
virtually no
baby.
experience. The stuff she has come up with her character has been some of the most incredibly iconic moments in our 2-year campaign. She's unbelievable. And we're like, where did that come from? This is like epic level gaming shit you're thinking of. And this isn't combat. This is just like and not even crazy shit, like just like, oh my god, that was such a brilliant, genius, clever idea, or such an iconic moment. It's been
It's amazing what your
wonderful.
group comes up with when you
Yeah.
reward creativity. Sorry, Suzy.
No, I was just saying as well, like the rest of us who were more experienced, were just sitting
Yeah.
there like, going, oh, we're not getting involved. I just want to watch. It's amazing. I have no idea what the fuck is going on, but it's amazing. It's just like,
Oh, do you swear on
okay,
your podcast? I'm sorry. in
No,
advance.
you're
We're
perfectly
Irish.
fine
I'm
too.
so
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes. I'm so
I
sorry.
just said balls, so like.
Yeah, well, that's not even a swear.
Swearing. That's not even
Jesus
a swear.
Christ. Please.
No,
In Ireland, that's
you
that's
can
nothing.
you can fucking swear
Can
here,
we?
okay? It's
Okay,
perfectly
good.
okay.
Oh
I just
god,
wanted to make
no,
sure,
'cause
know?
we were gonna be a PG stream, and then I remember we had our first combat in campaign 1, and myself and another player were going, fuck, what are we doing? Because everything just started going really, really wrong really quickly.
Yeah.
And like we were panicking like crazy. So like we started off like very demure, very mindful, and very conscious of our language. And as the combat session, like, loads of innocent NPCs got massacred. Like, it was so bad, and we were just like, oh god, I'm gonna try to salvage this situation. And as we're getting more panicked, there's just like non-stop swearing. And then the very next game was myself and the character. We'd had this, like, we were basically swearing our way through the entire session. We're like, oh god, I don't know, oh god.
It turned out that you were not very demure. You were very chaotic.
But it is actually an interesting point Suzy brings up when it comes to the topic of this podcast episode, which is actual play and performance.
Yeah.
When it comes to, like, okay, well, what is our rating? This is such a hugely cultural thing. In Ireland, we swear all the time. Now, we're not as bad as the Australians who use the C word as a form of punctuation, but we do swear all the time compared to North Americans, particularly the US, which is, and no offense to our North Americans here, at times puritanically prudish with their opinions on language. Like as you just said, balls. That's not a swear word outside of the United States. And then if
But
you
we
are
do
producing,
market to an American audience.
but this
so
is
we
my
have to be
point.
mindful of
If
these
you
things.
are producing content which is going to be viewed by potentially anybody, then it does become something that you'd be like, yeah, well, I mean, so we just embrace it of like, yeah, fuck it, we're Irish players playing this game. Okay, technically not all Irish. One of my players is Swiss, one is Russian, but we're European players. It's like if you're gonna have a problem with the fact that we swear, well, we don't give a shit. You can go and watch any one of the other 100 TTRPGs that are streaming on Twitch at this moment.
It if you saw, but I did actually try not to say that. And then it's
But
just like,
but it is something that I have noticed. It's like I do actually feel like the streams that are being produced in the US specifically really seem to make such a deal out of swearing in language, whereas when you're looking at whether it's Irish, British, Australian,
I think
yeah,
you're right.
like,
It comes back to that culture aspect, right?
oh, 100%.
We
Right.
don't care about swearing on our podcast. However, I think the reason why this even came up is because we were trying to be respectful of what other podcasts do.
yeah.
On it, we are for us, we are fully explicit. I'm sitting here trying to watch my own language, like because
Oh, please let it go. It's okay.
no,
Don't worry about it.
because,
We're not.
with-
We're not gonna
Like, you don't want
offend
this.
me,
You don't want
honestly.
this.
Like,
right
I used to
with
work for the
with
guy
my
who
own
was in the Navy.
experience, I end up using fuck for punctuation.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's normal.
So to just kind of let it
Yeah.
not quite hit my normal range. So
When the camera's
definitely-
off, we let it ride over on our side.
Timbo, how about
I
on,
swears all the time.
Timbo? How about on yours? Do you guys have any? Do you guys watch a language or?
Oh, absolutely not. We
Okay.
are we're very candid all the time in all the streaming capacities that we do. Definitely,
I love it.
It's. I think there was maybe a conception at one point in the distant past of being more family friendly, but that was quickly quashed.
Yeah.
It is funny actually. Sorry, going back to the damsels show. Like as I said, they're a cast of English performers. So being English people swear as much as the Irish do, but they're playing the characters that you're playing are three young highborn women from highborn families in Regency, England. So every single one of the characters sounds like they've just stepped directly out of a Jane Austen novel. So it's very proper, very demure, very respectful language all the time. And I'm really waiting for the moment. There's been one or two times some really horrible stuff has happened, but I'm really hoping that we get a moment at some point where something horrifically god awful happens and one of them in character snaps and swears, just so I can then look at the reactions of their fellow player characters in that moment, because it's like, for them it's not a case of, oh, let's be PG-13 or whatever. It's like, no, this is the setting. It's nothing more than this, like, literally it's D&D in Jane Austen, so
Yep.
therefore the language is matching that.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Oh my goodness.
So, when it comes to characters and AP and performance, are there any large differences that you guys see between your actual plays and your home games?
A lot more angst in my actual play.
Yeah.
feel that.
I think we like build characters specifically to break them for APs.
Mm.
It's so much more interesting to listen to.
All of you
Whereas,
to
like,
assume
I'm
I
in
don't
a,
do that for my home game.
well, me specifically, I'm in a Curse of Strahd campaign, and my character is like really happy and like chipper and whatnot. And then Ivy is just like, we call her lovingly the lesbian bitch, because she's just like, she's very direct, she's very crude, but she has this like wild backstory that's coming out slowly as we continue, and it's just heartbreaking. And I laugh maniacally, but everybody else is like, "Oh my god, that poor girl."
So normally, what I often do when I make a character is I'll start with the usual start racing class and a general idea, and then as we start playing, so in a home game, I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm not. Sometimes I'm not quite sure what way they're gonna go because I want to see how the other characters are, and then vibe off that and build my character on that, and then flesh it out as we play. So that's what I usually do. But I feel like for a home game or for an AP, you kind of need to go in. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do for have an idea. So the funny thing with our first campaign, I started off with this like Neil actually had to hound me for a backstory for ages. And I gave him one. Well, okay. So what I did, because I was in a campaign before that where I was the only one who put any work into my character, and everybody else left everything really vague. So I was like, okay, I'm not doing that again. So I essentially said, okay, my character is a foundling, and I gave him a blank character sheet basically, and I said, yeah, do what you want, I don't care. And so we started the game. We played for about 4 years, and then so by the time we started recording, I had a really strong idea, really kind of firm idea. Okay, this is who my character is. Blah blah blah. Blah. She was really strong, dependable. Oh, it's fine. Braun is there, really practical, had good ideas. And then things happen in the campaign, and you literally see her completely unravel in real time. Um, that was because some of the stuff actually hit on my own personal life, and I was just like, oh Jesus, and I like you're literally seeing me kind of unraveling in the podcast. It's a bit weird. And then in campaign 2 I went in with a really strong character concept. It's interesting when she's talking about characters who you build to break. So because I had a character who was really strong, who was broken in campaign, I decided to go the other way around. So I started with a character who was really broken, who then
The
recovered.
most horribly fucked up, traumatic past I think I've, with the exception of one other friend who, not to get too serious, was a survivor of domestic abuse. Suzy's character for this campaign was the most fucked up, traumatic backstory I've ever gotten from a player.
I started with a character who was broken, and then
Absolute trauma lesbian.
who then has recovered somewhat in the game, and it's been interesting to play through that and see that happening.
Okay.
I think for the difference between like home game and actual play, I build my actual play characters to with the idea that I'm telling a story in mind, right? As for a home game, I'm just there to have fun. So, actual plays, I make the character to go fit in with the story, to fit in well with the other characters, with performance in mind. Whereas my home game, I'm just like, this is vibes. Whatever, whatever happens, happens. I'm just gonna have fun with them, you know?
I do feel from the GM's perspective it's very similar. When I'm running a home game, it's all about fun vibes that my players and I will love. But for my actual play, while obviously I want to have fun and vibes with my players, I'm always, every single thing that I do, I'm there asking myself, in what way does this progress the story in a way that my viewers will find enjoyable? You know, so the shift in the emphasis has changed. It's not just about vibing with my players. It's my story is now always, you know, it's funny. It's kind of like you're almost thinking about it like a movie or a TV series. You know, okay, if we're in Act One of the series, episodes 1 to 5, would this fit? Okay, the way I want to bring this now, would that fit with episodes 5 to 10 of the series? You know, and let's get to our horrific Game of Thrones climax. You know, like it is a different kind of like my players are still having fun. We're still having vibes, but the emphasis has shifted.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Timbo?
Well, it is really fascinating hearing all of your different perspectives on this because I very much run my games in a very similar way. Like whether or not I'm on stream or I'm off stream, I very much put like this conception of like since the audience is going to be there regardless of whether or not you're in public or you are playing with friends, because like we mentioned in the first part, either the players are going to be the audience or there's going to be a greater audience at large. I am always like and I think again this ties into like the entertainment background part of it. Like I definitely am always wanting to put on like a little bit of a show for people. Like, and I think that's really just my mentality personally, where I very much like having this this kind of I guess set pieces and stuff that people are interacting with and vibing with and pushing on further from there depending on what they do and choices they're in. So it's interesting because like I'm also very much of the opinion when I'm running things where I'm going to do stuff that I think is interesting and compelling. I'm a very big fan of Hideo Kojima in the sense that he will just do all kinds of wild stuff in his video games, and then he'll be like, I'm gonna justify this later with other even more ridiculous stuff that doesn't make any sense, and then I'm gonna justify that later, right? Like just justification on justification on justification, and that's really how I run a lot of my games as well, where I love including and incorporating zany things and then justifying it with an explanation and then having the players be like, well, does that make sense? And diving deeper into that and questioning because I feel like that's one of the best ways you can get player engagement and also audience engagement as in like a public facing game is like having them ask questions, having them do theory crafting and because that truly shows that they are engaging with the media in especially in a way if they're non-players and they're just watching that they really truly only can by thinking and theory crafting and all that stuff.
I love that.
It's like J.J. Abrams' mystery box, but with the guts to see it through to the end and actually explain the stuff that doesn't really make sense.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the real trick is figuring out how to justify stuff in like a circular manner, so that way that the end justification justifies the very first thing that happened, and it just becomes this big circular reasoning of justification. That's the real trick.
I can't imagine the conspiracy
Wait a
theories that
minute,
must
all
come out
of
of that.
this happened? Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was talking over you. Sorry.
I agree that watching other people come up with theories is probably one of my favorite things that has happened to me over the last year since we started our show.
Absolutely. And it's really fascinating too because there will be moments like when I'm running Tales of the Riot Nexus where I had given, for example, one of my players, her name is RightQ and she plays Lux. She had done some investigation into what was going on in the system and she discovered a little bit of information about a rare resource, and then another player who is named Cal and they got by Domino, they received a mysterious item for their gun that was like a new cylinder for it, and they just off the top of the head they were like, oh, I think that cylinder is made out of this rare material. Now I had not written down that the material was in fact that the thing was made out of that material, but I was like, that is such a clever and fun idea, and incorporated the ideas that I had also put forth. I was just like, yes, you know what, that it is made out of that stuff. It's special like that, and just like
Let's make it canon.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things to do, where it's just like players come up with something wild, and you're just like, you know what? Yes, that is what's happening in this moment. I love doing that.
Yep.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun when that happens. Now, for another one of the questions that we have that is kind of branch real nice here is, has there ever been a time where you had an idea of how you wanted to play a scene, however the dice seemed to interfere and they had their own plans? And if so, would you be willing to talk about it?
No?
I think
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go. I'll go. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something.
Yeah.
I think a lot of ours is dictated through combat, because we have a player who chronically rolls low.
Mm.
It's so funny. She says that her crit is a 13, lucky number
That's-
13, because she rolls it so often.
Oh my god. Okay.
Ooh.
And so she says it in this way that's like lucky number 13. Like I hit it. It's like no. We've had weapons break. We've had people get swallowed by monsters. Which dictates the entirety of that fight then, because you can't just stab into it. You have to get the other person out. We've had deception rolls. Obviously, I think that's going to be the biggest one. Is if your character is not ready to reveal something and you roll low on your deception and the other player rolls high, what are you going to do about it? You can't just like how the dice want you. The dice wants this to come out now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had entire like points that were supposed to come out a little bit later that came out at that session because that's how it is.
Also, the entirety of our last episode is the result of some bad rolls. Episode
we've
30.
got really hot days and really bad days. I think that's just that's the way it is sometimes in any TTRPG. But yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay.
I just thought of one. So we had in a Cursive Strahd game, we had one of the players brought these cards, okay, so it was a cards. We all decided this sounds like an absolutely amazing idea. So when you get a critical success, you draw a card, and it's this thing happened. But there was also a card for critical failures. So that could be things like weapons breaking. The case of critical success, you do double damage. And there's all sorts of,
Yeah.
There was one instance where I can't remember what my character was doing. I was attacking with a legendary sword, which is essentially a lightsaber. I rolled a critical failure. I drew a card, and the card said, "You cut off the dominant hand of one of your party."
Excuse me? Oh,
yeah,
God.
I maimed the rogue.
She cut off the dominant hand of the party rogue.
You did not.
Yes.
It was so funny, but it was
no.
only because my friend or one of our friends who played, and it was this guy's character.
Who brought the cards. It was his character.
Who brought the cards. It was his character, and he plays a lot of Call of Cthulhu, so that's the kind of vibe that he loves. So he had this, and he was like, "Oh, I have these cards. We have to play it." And we were like, we looked at a couple, but actually, fuck, that's going to be hilarious. Let's do it. And I cut off the hand of the party rogue.
It was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
There was also the time, love, in our current campaign when you failed the resolve roll the first time you were fighting one clerk.
God, yeah. So
Yeah.
my character, due to horrible, I wanted my character's backstory to come out bit by bit, but she's got a really terrible, like really bad fear of fire. And
After her wife was incinerated on the battlefield by an ancient dragon, after throwing Susie's character to the ground and throwing her body over her to protect her.
It's all very sad. It's all very sad.
As I said, ultimate trauma lesbian.
It's very sad. No, she's like. I think things are getting
Recovering trauma lesbian.
Things are getting better. Things are getting better. No, but yeah, I tanked my resolve roll, like this particular sorcerer.
Fighting a sorcerer who loved to chuck fireballs.
And he had these arcane soldiers, and he didn't care if he set them on fire. And then, yeah, I I typed my resolve rolls. I was like, I'm basically dissociating. I'm just not there. The others had to basically grab me and drag me out because I was not like.
Yeah.
It was funny when I was running the campaign, the mini campaign with the Emerald Collective. Wonderful players, incredible players, absolutely brilliant. None of them could roll above a 5 for like practically the entire feckin' campaign. Like it got to the point, and this was a stream where you can like tip to give like advantage and stuff to the players, and even I was giving them advantages that chat had given me so they could re-roll because their rolls were so awfully bad. When the GM is like, look, just try again. Like, that's how bad it was. It was terrible. I'm not exaggerating. Every session, most of them were averaging about a 7 or an 8 on the rolls
Yeah.
for like 90% of the rolls.
Yeah. Wow. Timbo, do you have a story you'd like to share?
I'm trying to think of one. It's a fascinating question because I think that the majority of the games that I've played in, I'm a little bit of a chaotic player. I will definitely, if you put a narrative hook out in front of me, I'm gonna bite down. I'm gonna bite down hard on that narrative hook. But then I might take that hook off in a direction that the DM might not necessarily have conceptualized initially. So it's a really interesting question. But I think that like when I'm playing as a player in I had the opportunity to play as a player in a short campaign series that we did recently called The Dream, ran by Werewolf, which was a public access series. It was my first time playing public access, and it was extremely good because it felt like even when things were going catastrophically wrong, that Werewolf had a plan of action and what was going to happen after the fact. Which to me I think is key in those kinds of moments, right? Where you're like, if things are going terribly wrong or you have fumbled exceptionally badly, that's still like that's not the end of the story. The story is that's just simply a choice that has been made, right? And I think that is one of the best things that you can do as a game master when things are going off the rails and going wrong, to be like, okay, and here's the direction the story is going, and continuing leading that heading, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I am going to share one of my favorite dice telling a stories from my actual play, if y'all listen to it.
Yeah, go for it.
Absolutely.
So, in my actual play, Tales of Yvard, we use a Mythcraft system. It's a little bit different. In the end, my troubadour, which would be kind of a bard in other systems, was pretty much doing music battles back and forth with a violin to acquire. If he won, he was going to be able to buy this or actually be given this magical violin that had some healing properties to it. And when I say that this party desperately needs some healing sometimes, it was very, very strong. He did this 3 times and failed the first 2. The first 2 times he went by himself here. When he went with the entire party, he won.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool.
Power of friendship. Yeah.
Honestly, the best trope though. Let's be real.
And like full honesty, none of them did anything. Like some of them have abilities that may have increased their die rolls and stuff like that, but none of that was actually done. It was all straight on the dice side, kind of. The
But there
troubadour
is
buffed
in
his
that
own
sense,
stuff.
because they were with you, they were supporting you even if they weren't mechanically doing it. So it's kind of like through the story, it kind of happens, you know.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's probably one of my favorite examples of like the dice really wanting to tell their own story.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So let's move on to another question then. So what appeals to all of you about actual play as a form of art or a form of or as performance?
Um, so everybody in Tales of Three also has writing background.
Mm.
My specific favorite thing about doing this story in particular is telling the story.
Mm.
We all incorporate our favorite tropes, basically. Wayra and I both love horror, so horror and dark fantasy shows up quite a lot. It shows up in the storyline. It shows up in the way we DM. It shows up in our characters' backstories. Um,
Even the way
I
we
love.
describe combats.
Mm-hmm. I love telling that type of story. I love acting out that type of story. I have mainly a Shakespearean background, um, improv Shakespeare as well. So I really like that dramatic sort of storytelling. Um, so having that in my back pocket also helps with those darker bits and
Mm.
continuing on a storyline that might be a little bit too like you might have to go over it a couple times, and just like keep going. And that's my favorite part, I think, of it.
Yeah, I have to agree. Like, I think telling the nature of telling the story is one of the most compelling things about actual play to me, as well as I really love the improvised nature of it. Like, it's one of my favorite things to have because I'm a pretty loose planning GM. I come up with like a few rough bullet points of how I think the session is going to go or directions I want to point them in, and then I will just let the players bridge those points together, right? And that is my favorite thing about doing a live stream session is that like you are put into this position where the players are doing some wild or out of pocket things, and you have to improvise how they are going to bridge to those other points. And improvisation is like that's really my bread and butter when I'm doing game running, and I love doing that kind of stuff.
But it's not even just improvisation like you like improvised comedy, right? It's improvising an entire campaign narrative. So it's a little bit different than just coming going to like you're watching whose line is it anyway.
Oh,
I think
definitely.
it's a different skill set than that for sure.
Definitely, because it's like improv, but instead of it being necessarily with an inherent comedy slant, it is with a narrative slant instead, where you are trying to come up with narrative improvised reasons why these different threads are connecting together. Which is it's in the same vein, but it is a different skill set, definitely, which is
Yeah.
but not interchangeable, but not necessarily not interchangeable. Like you can a lot of those skills I think do work with like they flip.
Yeah. Very
For
cool. How?
me,
Yeah. Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Um, I was just gonna say, I think my favorite thing about the actual play thing that we do is along the same vein. Definitely a big part of it is the storytelling aspect. But another part of it that I really enjoy is like just the community that we've built around it and the ability to hold space for. I don't know if you probably know that we are primarily like a queer, women-led podcast. So being able to create a safe and comfortable space for that community and seeing the interactions we've made and the connections we've made, it's just I think that's my favorite part of all this. I love it so much. In addition to telling the story in general.
For sure, that is very nice to have that make it a comfortable space for like a marginalized audience is very nice a very nice goal.
Oh, for sure. And everyone, like not just the marginalized community, but meeting people in general has been fantastic in this
Yeah,
community. So,
cool. Susie, how about you? Any thoughts about what appeals to you about actual plays and art form? Oh,
Before getting to tell that story, but then like we have our own little fair Discord, and we're not super active right now. Mostly, I have developed a little bit of an obsession with Victorian ball gowns from 1870. So I have disappeared down the House of Worth rabbit hole. So a lot of the Discord is being like, "Oh my God, there's this really pretty dress," or like we have another like or spamming with pictures of my dog. Um, but I just some of the people on our Discord is like making connections and meeting with people, and then like one of my friends from college, I've known her for like over 20 years. He watches the podcast, and like just hearing, oh my God, I love your character. Oh my God, I love this, and hearing other people, because like I love my character. I love all the characters in our game so much, and hearing other people connecting and relating to those characters, and just going, oh, I can totally relate to how this person felt when this thing happened, and it was just felt really real, and hearing that, and it's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do, and I'm so glad that it came across, and then
Yeah.
the connect that you can
Absolutely,
feel
yeah.
from that,
And what's more, since you do yours live, you probably get some like immediate feedback from people too.
Yeah, so we have a chat on our Twitch. So like that, like, so you when you okay, on which like I do log on and then troll our game while we're playing. Um if there's a scene that like I'm not in, I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna watch this. This is amazing, and I'll start like making snarky comments about it, like just not mean, just
Yeah.
kind of, oh, I see what's going on, and just like, and then you obviously have my friend on it as well, and it's so nice to just see, like our okay, we had our first troll, which makes me think, we're definitely doing something
Oh,
right.
you're making it when you have
Yeah.
one of those, for
I
sure.
was just like, oh my God, this is like, our first kind of
Conflict.
anyway.
First time having to, yeah. I was like, I know I've made it. I just had to ban somebody from chat. I've made it.
This is amazing. But even like the fact that okay, it was negative, but they felt the need to, like, we affected them so much that they felt the need to interact with us. Like, yeah, okay, we're making connections. Some of them are a bit, but
Yeah, because the other thing is that like our stream, um, and is an all. I'm the token cis het white man in our stream. My entire cast is a femme presenting cast, of cis, trans, the whole spectrum,
Yeah.
the whole femme perspective. That is my cast of players, so I'm the token straight white guy.
Yeah, I felt that on occasion with various playtests and skies. Yeah.
So one of the next questions we're going to come to is, what made you want to either join or create an actual play?
Yeah, like think back to the you that was, before you got into one. Put yourself in that headspace. What made you want to join up?
Honestly, we're really fucking funny. um, um, but on a more serious note, when we started this podcast, God, what, 2 years ago now?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. There was a lot of very big representation for more of minority spaces within D&D. But there wasn't so much as like on a ground level, if that makes sense. Obviously, the market is saturated with TTRPG podcasts. Let's be real about it. You can't like make a left corner without running into 5 at this point. But the ones we were seeing weren't outwardly queer friendly. And we wanted to come together and, like Wayra was talking about in the last question, make that community. Make a home for all people of all kinds who can feel comfortable and who can listen and go, oh, I see myself in that character in a very real sense. Like, not just projected onto whatever you know, for example, in historically video games was just male characters. Like you can project yourself as much as you want, but that's still a male character. If you're non-binary or you're female or two spirit or other of those things, you can't really find yourself that much in that character. We make it a conscious effort to try and create NPCs and PCs that people can see themselves in regardless of what they are and
Hmm.
who they are. And that has been for me, and I think I can also say for Wayra and Ari, that's been the driving factor of our whole project. Yes, we love each other. We have so much fun together. I love telling the story. I love being able to act. But at the end of the day, we are creating something that other people can enjoy and look at and go, "That's me."
Yeah.
I think the
And we
first
bring
time
it
that
to
I
life
read that,
with that acting.
absolutely. I think the first time that I read somebody connected to one of our characters on like a not only like an emotional level but like a personal level, like they saw their identity in that person, I actually cried because I know what it feels like to look at a, like, let's say a show, like whether it's anime, cartoons, whatever, like big movies, and not be able to see you in it. Like, for example, on Critical Role, this most recent campaign, there's a character who deals with chronic pain. I'm also a person who deals with disability and chronic pain, and the first time I saw that, I actually broke down. So I wanted to be able to put that into motion for our community as well. I think it's so important, you know?
Representation is, I think it's important too. Yeah, for sure.
But
Well, I'm glad
what
that
got me,
you're
oh, sorry.
getting. I'm just gonna say I'm glad that y'all have found an audience there. You know, I'm glad that people are connecting.
Thank you. We're small but mighty, we like to say.
Hmm. All right. How about FeyEarth? What do you think about wanting to join an AP? What's the motivation there?
I'll be the one who gives the completely horribly depressing and capitalist answer to this question. I am an indie TTRPG creator. That means I am creating a TTRPG that is not 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which means you have to work 100 times harder to get less than 10% of the results. Trying to make any TTRPG that is not based around 5e is virtually impossible to do. Virtually no one does this full time at all. Even the people who are the most successful in the indie scene, 99% of them have either a full time job or a partner who has a very well paying full time job. That's why they're able to do what they do. That's the reality of TTRPGs that are not 5e. So when I created my actual play, originally as a podcast and now as a Twitch stream, it was pure capitalism. It was getting people to be aware that my game exists, getting eyes on my product, and trying to develop a community so it has some chance of someday being successful. That was basically it. Um, and then Suzy happens to be married to the creator of the game.
I also love FeyEarth, and I wanted to succeed. I wanted to get out there, so I want to be like, hey, like, look over here. We're doing this really awesome thing. You have all of this scope, and you can create any type of character you want, and we have lots of ways of creating a character so that anybody can create a character that they can see themselves in. Kind of be like, okay, I that's like me. Oh, I struggle with that too, or even just that kind of or even if there's something that, like, because FeyEarth is it's Neil's making it is essentially organic, so as things come up sometimes Neil has to sit down and kind of go, oh, actually, what would be the mechanics be for this? I need to think about that, hold on. And he'll, like, so if that happens in stream, I think you do just sometimes go, okay, so we're going to do this, and that is then canon, because
Hmm.
that's what it is. And, like, you know I've loved seeing it develop, and we've had, definitely because it's organic, we've had like instances where Neil has created a spell, and then maybe a character would be like, "Ooh, I could use the spell this way in a way that it is not intended for." And I was like, "Okay, I've changed the rules on that because apparently we can't have nice things."
I
You
did,
know?
but when that happened, I changed the spell description, but only after I then got to use that spell on that player the way they had misused the spell on my villains and NPCs.
Little parody there.
It
Yeah.
was brutal. Oh man, it was so brutal. And it didn't help that like one of the other players had come over with packets of jelly worms, those jelly worms. So we were like, this is really brutal combat, and we were like high as fuck on sugar. Just because we've been eating sweets for like 2 hours, so we were acting like a bunch of just messed up 5-year-olds. And so this horrible stuff is happening, and like it's on the podcast, and we're all like laughing uncontrollably, because it's so terrible, and if we don't laugh, we'd cry. But also like just so much sugar, and it's just
Yeah.
like this awfulness is unfolding, and it was very funny.
Once we moved to Twitch, we became a lot more strict. Like people might be enjoying a glass of wine or gin or a beer or something, but no indulging in large quantities of sugar. And I actually feel happier with my players drinking alcohol than having an entire bag of, jelly babies, because I've seen the effects of alcohol on players at my table, and I've seen the effects of sugar on players at my table, and sugar is way more chaotic.
Yeah. You even brought that up in our last the last time you were on with
Yeah,
the edit on the editing side. So
yeah.
if you want to check out the actual plays and editing
Oh yeah.
podcast as well for some good tips.
Oh yeah, because we were eating crisps early days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Nightmare.
It's just like, oh god. Then there was another one where we got pizza, and it was like, oh god, we have to cut all of that. It's awful.
Right.
Yeah. Chewy noises. Oh.
Timbo, what about yourself? What made you want to join a AP?
So when I started getting into Twitch, it was right around the advent of the pandemic, because both me and my partner are high risk. So we have unfortunately been quarantined since the advent therein. So we're still hanging out at home, still being very much home focused, while COVID is still out there. But I had a lot of free time now, so I was wanting to come up with something to do during this new availability that I had been granted. So I love tabletop games, and I had already been running tabletop games at a local Tuckeria at a place that they were doing a D&D night. And so I was like, this seems like a logical jump to actual play, although it did take me a good year until I started actually like running and consistently performing in an actual play, simply due to the group that I ended up throwing in with, which unfortunately dissolved, but from the ashes rose what is the current like production stuff that I'm doing on my channel and in my Discord, my guild house. So it really kind of all rose from just having an exceptional amount of free time and then wanting to dive into the passions that I really enjoyed and wanting to connect with other people in like an online space and be able to like facilitate that for other folks as well, because I personally had never really felt that at home in like online communities in the past. So I was really looking to like either find a community that I could and did call home, or make my own. And I ended up going with the latter in this case, and that's really helped facilitate all of the actual play shenanigans that we've done since then. Originally, the first actual play that I ran on my channel, The Exploits of the Golden Shadows, was initially planned to be on, it was initially planned as an actual play for the group I was a part of that unfortunately dissolved. And then we just ended up adapting it for my channel.
Yeah. You got to wonder how many. Well, it's a lot. We'll just say it's a lot of creative projects got their start because of the coronavirus.
Yeah,
I know
definitely.
That's true for me.
Right. What's kind of funny is I think my answer is kind of a mix of everyone's. Like I said, our system is based on the Mythcraft system, which is an indie game system, and partially because I wanted more people to get eyes on it, I decided to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And because everyone has their own struggles and everyone looks for representation, and even my own experiences, it's not easy to find representation that matches me very well either. Which again, there's some, absolutely there's some, because like someone has said, the market is kind of saturated a little bit, but I decided I wanted to be able to do that for someone else.
Yeah.
Because I found one that did it for me, I wanted to do that for someone else. And then the third thing was me and two of my players at different occasions had talked about starting creative projects at different times, and I just said, you know what, we're just gonna do it. I'm gonna bring both of you in here and we're gonna start this. We're gonna find a couple more people, we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna push out this indie game that I adore. I spend probably 15 hours a week committing time toward this indie game that is not mine. It's just for me to try to promote that.
Yeah.
Because I want more people to realize that there are better options out there.
Definitely appreciated that from my perspective, as an indie game creator.
It's just, and obviously I don't have the same style of drive as you do, Neil, trying to promote your own stuff, right? But then again, like, I love this system that I broke 100 times when it first came out, because I was a playtester for it, and every time I'd go in and tell them I broke that and talk to them about why I broke it, they would adjust things, and being able to help in that way was one thing, but now trying to pull more people in to see that you can do it, and once again creating a space where everyone can feel seen and understood. Our podcast is something that I hold dear for weird reasons.
Well, you should. It's something you put a lot of passion into, clearly. So
It's not weird at all. I think it's awesome.
yeah.
I think if I'm reading the questions right, I think we have one more.
We have one more. Yeah.
Okay. What is a bit of your performance in your actual play that you're particularly proud of?
So go ahead and brag on yourselves a little bit here. Make people wanna check you out. That's what this question's for. So. Might need a second to think about that one.
I really struggled with this. Neil told me about the question ahead of time, and I was literally like, I don't know. Oh God, that is such yeah. So.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm more than willing to answer this question first.
Yeah, go for it.
Maybe while everyone else is thinking. So I also play in an actual play, but I'm not going to talk about that one. My favorite bit of performance from my show is I have two characters that have access to magic it's the same source of magic for them, but they access it in very different ways. One of them accessed the magic through training with a tree and like learning nature magic that way. The other one learned it from reading a book and being like, I wonder how they did that, and then through their imagination created the spell effects. So one of my favorite bits of the actual play is their interactions when they talk about magic.
Mm.
Because it's something that's deeply personal for both of them, but on such a different side of the spectrum that it is great RP every time they get into it.
Very cool.
I don't know if I talked long enough for anybody to come
No,
up with one.
that's good. I wish I could add something too. We're actually going to be doing an actual play for this around the table next month, which I'll talk about more when the time comes. But it'll be my first time really doing one where I'm not GMing, so I'll have more to share at that time. But yeah.
A moment that really comes to mind for me is during the season finale of Sigil Community College. Sigil Community College is just such an eclectic cast of players. Me, Gremlins Are Us, Mushroom Soup, and we are like the three of us are. We have such an interesting and unique energy together because we're good friends and we hang out very regularly, and they are also involved in several of the other productions that we do. So we have a really interesting energy together. So during the season finale, my character, we had ended up wandering into a back alley where there was a potion seller, and my character we all imbibed potions because that's what you do when you meet a random potion seller who's a snake man. And my character everybody else got benefits. My character ended up turning slightly green and being unable to leave the water for more than 2 hours. So I became like a mer person, basically. And then the rest of the episode was us doing a court case where we got Freaky Friday and somebody else was in my body. And so that issue became a completely different other player's issue. But that was one of my favorite episodes just in general because it gave me the opportunity to play my character of Strider while being in the body of another player's character and acting as myself while being them. It was really, really interesting. It was real cool. And the entire conception behind that was that we were in a court case. And so the idea was to circumvent being asked incriminating questions by being like, oh, did you do this thing? No, I didn't do this thing. Not me. It wasn't me that did this thing. It was that person, right? Because of the mind swap, right? It was really fun. It was a really good session.
That does sound memorable. All right, how about this, Dusty and Wayra? Can you think of a good anecdote about the other person for this question?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
So Wayra's character is named Varys. And Varys is such an intensely fascinating character, and the way Wayra portrays them is so intensely fascinating as well. There was a moment that always sticks out in my mind where we uncover a little bit of Varys' backstory, and it's uncovered in the way of a message that was sent to them straight into their brain. And the moments after that in which the character is confronted with their worst fear ever, while also having hid the fact that this is their worst fear ever, it was so great. And honestly, I was I felt honored to be watching this and to watch the process that Varys went through and watch just how raw and real the performance felt. Because that's the biggest thing, right? Is when you're doing this, you're trying to give a performance that people will be able to understand, that people will be able to listen to and feel in their bones. And when Wayra does specific things with Varys and details these moments, you can feel it. And that's not just a me thing. That's people who listen to the podcast are like, no, yeah, we can feel whenever Varys feels something because of the way Wayra describes it. It's just so cool. And it's really helped me step up my game too.
I'm gonna cry. Don't do this to me. Thank you.
I thought of one.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not a classically trained actor. I was big into drama when I was in school. Got totally disillusioned with the whole thing because it was always only the popular girl, because I went to a Catholic all-girls school because it's Ireland. Only the popular girls ever got chosen for anything. Didn't matter if they could act or sing, but you know, if they were popular, they were the ones who got chosen. I'm really disillusioned with it all. So I'm not. I did love acting when I was doing it. I kind of fell out of it. So for me, it kind of the TTRPGs kind of scratched that itch a little bit in a way. But I'm not a professional. Okay, I need to emphasize that. So I've been having my character is a really tragic backstory, as Neil said. But there was this whole thing where I just said in an offhand comment, "Oh, she'd have a wedding anniversary, wouldn't she?" And he was like, "Okay, what's the date?" So I just pulled a date out of my ass and just went, "Yeah, okay, it's this date." And then I realized, oh shit, this is a long running campaign, and that date came. Started getting closer, and I was like, "Oh, fuck. Oh shit, she's going to be like really upset." And then I was like, "Nobody's going to want a fucking session where like my character's being depressed. That's shit." So, Neil basically persuaded me to do it. And so what ended up happening was I spent a couple of sessions just not really saying anything and not interacting. And then the day of the anniversary, I happened to get really bad laryngitis.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I don't know, like, see, I work in a gym, but I teach a lot of outdoor classes, and when the seasons change, I'll often, like, come down with a sore throat. And so I ended up, so I was logged on stream, because, you know, I'm going to do this. I could barely talk, but I genuinely sounded like somebody who was physically struggling to get the word, like I was. I can't cry on command, but I sounded like I was going to cry because I was just like, and I was, you know, it was whispering, it was rasping. My character also speaks with an accent. Um, and I remember when it happened, like one of the other characters, they're kind of her bestie at the time, was very much like, you know, not good in emotional situations. Just kind of went, all right, so what is it? Just, you know, not in a, "Oh, here, you poor thing," giving her hugs, because like my character hates that kind of shit anyway. I'm just like, okay, so what's going on? And held space for me while I finally dumped all of this, because we've been playing for a long ass time at this point, and then it was like, oh shit. And then one of my friends, or my friend who watches the show, texted me and said, I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, for me, I was like, "Oh, really? Yes." You know, um, but the
Very
laryngitis helped, and I leaned into it big time. But yeah,
fate conspired to just work with you on that one, it
oh,
seems.
for sure, it was just like, "Oh, you're gonna do this. I'm gonna make you do this," and it was just like, it yeah, it actually ended up working out like amazing, despite like, "Oh my god, I'm sick and I'm supposed to be streaming." Shit, like normally that would be really bad, but it really helped.
Yeah. All right. I'm just gonna pick on Wayra again. Do you have something for you want to brag on for Dusty?
I do. I always want to brag about Dusty.
Okay.
Um, I well, first I'm gonna brag about all of us. The cool thing about our project that I've begun to realize is that we are constantly improving and evolving and learning from one another and feeding off of each other. Um, so what was my favorite moment a while ago tends to change a lot because every time we do this, things just get better and better, and I can't keep track of it all. Um, but one of my most recent favorite moments for Dusty is actually in the episode 30 that just came out. Um, I don't want to give too much away, but there is a moment where a pretty intense scenario happened with the three of them, our three main characters. And in that moment, Dusty made a character choice that absolutely took me by surprise and racked me with both guilt and almost made me sob. Um, Dusty, you continue to impress me every single time that we do this. The way that you portray Ivy is incredible. I feel every emotion I feel like that you describe as well. And I think that when we finished recording that episode, I remember distinctly all of us trying not to cry. That was my favorite moment. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now I gotta streamline 30 episodes to figure out what's going on.
Sorry.
All
But
right.
it is worth it, I promise.
And last but not least, Neil, do you have one that you want to brag on for yourself or your players or anything along those lines?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, as the GM, it's different. I have NPCs I've created that were really great. I've, as Suzy will tell you, I've had some really, really phenomenal villains that I've thrown at my players, but with them, often what's made them so great isn't so much in my performance as it has been the Machiavellian planning of those characters as they're carrying out their evil acts. And while I have had a few, like I remember I created a character in our first campaign, and he was a pure fun NPC. There was a lot of heavy shit going on. Like we were getting towards the end of what had been a 5-year campaign, and they were basically fighting incredibly powerful, epic tier bad guys. So lots of stress in game. My players are stressing. So I created this character purely for comic relief, who was a really fun character by the name of Alpheus Steiner, who was a former adventurer sorcerer who, having had a long career of sorcery, had retired and become a dressmaker for wealthy women using his powers of magic to create incredible, wondrous items to wear at balls. And he was a really, really fun character. Everybody loved him. Every scene with him was pure whimsy. Like they had another NPC that they were friends of who was an artificer, actually making useful shit for them. He was making pretty things that were fabulous. And he was really fun.
Dinners and balls. And,
Yeah, he was really fun. But I did create a character for this campaign, Monsieur Philippe Dubois, Capitaine Philippe Dubois, because our campaign is set in France, who in no way at all bears any resemblances to any Disney characters who are horribly toxic, misogynistic hunters pursuing a beautiful, bookish maiden in a town who does not want to marry them. And he was wonderful. He was absolutely incredible. My characters hated him instantly. Instantly.
It was visceral.
It was visceral, but what made him so brilliant was the fact that he was actually an extremely skilled, highly talented hunter. He punched a direwolf in the face. You know, he helped them kill an ogre. He was really good at what he did, which was why he was the famed local hero as well. Because if a beastie came along, oh, Dubois will take care of it. So, as much as they hated him, they had to acknowledge and respect that he's actually really good at what he does,
We did
which just
actually have to ask him for help a couple of times as well.
but that
Like,
just made them hate him even
oh,
more.
we've got a werewolf problem. Can you just help us?
Yeah, so and that was so much fun to play, that when as the GM, when you can create a character like that, that when you bring them to the game, when you bring them to the table, and through your performance you can, create these visceral responses. Sometimes it's the beloved kobold that the party decides to adopt, or the orphan urchin, or whatever. But no, with this guy, it was like, no, no, we really hate him so much, and we want to kill him, but we can't because we need his help. So we now hate him more.
Yep.
I love that.
Okay. Well, I think that everybody was almost a podcast. Of course, the last thing we need to do is to give plugs, which will, of course, be in the show notes too. But we want to know where to find you and your stuff. So I'll start with Dusty and Wayra. Where can we find Tales of Three?
Dusty, you're muted.
Hello, friends. You can find Tales of Three pretty much on all social media platforms at this point. We have a TikTok, we have a Blue Sky, we have a Threads, we have an Instagram. Truly, almost anything you can think of, we are most likely there. Personally, I'm on Threads as Dusty Penny with two Y's at the end.
So I will preface this by saying Tales of Three is a Rainbow Dice Club production. So you can find us at Rainbow Dice Club on all of our socials, but as Dusty said, you can find us at Tales of Three on pretty much for like listening purposes on every platform you can find a podcast at.
Cool.
Personally, you can find me at Fake Shiny on any social media.
All right. Neil and Suzy, how about FeyEarth?
You can find us everywhere at FeyEarth, Fey Earth. Okay. On Twitter, Blue Sky. On Instagram, we're actually Brambleheart Games, which is the company I created to publish my game. I'm not as active on that. I'm 43 years of age. I don't do Instagram, although I do
Cross
technically
social
have a
media as
TikTok
well.
account, and
Really
that just
sorry.
feels weird. But where you'll definitely find me is on Blue Sky. I love Blue Sky so much. It's absolutely fucking amazing. So you'll definitely find us there. We stream on Twitch on Sunday evenings, and our entire back catalog of games or sorry, not games, of episodes is on our YouTube channel as well, FeyEarth. And I'm also on Itch.io, where you can find a bunch of things. An early release version of our core rulebook. The actual rulebook will be, please God, if everything goes to plan, coming out end of next year. I had a Kickstarter earlier this year, which raised funds to officially publish my game. So I'm currently working with a team of 6, 7 amazing artists and also editors, and putting together a possibly up to 450-page core rule book is a lot of work. But it should be out by the end of next year. And until then, if you want to jump over to my itch page, you can find an early release version of the rulebook, a bunch of one shots, a really fun starter adventure, and a couple of other things I've made. A really fun, really whimsical rules like game called Fey Wanderer, where you play Fey creatures on a quest for treasure in the Fey realm. And I also recently wrote a Candela Obscura adventure as well, because I've now fallen completely in love with that system too.
Cool. All right,
I'm
Timbo.
absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, you're okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I'm absolutely crap at social media, and I tried to set up a TikTok, and wouldn't even be able to tell you the handle on it. It's right up for the moment. It was just me bored during the pandemic, singing depressing Irish ballads. They're really good for making babies fall asleep. So
Yeah,
And we had a baby during the pandemic, so that was important.
I believe it. Yeah. Goodness.
So yeah, no, I'm fair. Go to deal stuff.
Cool. All right, Timbo the Wizard.
Hey everybody, you can catch me on twitch.tv/Timbo the Wizard. We do regular streams at 7 p.m. EST on Wednesdays and Sundays, either tabletop shenanigans or video games of some various nature. You can also find all of the shows and other streams that we've done on the channel on youtube.com/Timbo the Wizard. All that stuff gets compiled there. You can also go to the website, which is just brand new, Timbo's Guild House, where you can find out more about all the shows and all the various players that we've got in various productions. Yeah, and social media and the Discord. The Guild House is the best way to keep up with all the fun stuff we got going on, which we do have a couple of new things in the works coming in the new year. So keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, thank you again for having me.
Thanks for being here. Corey, how about you?
All right, so pretty much across all social media, we are Tales of Uvard podcast.
How do you spell that? How do you spell the Vard?
Yeah, that's Y''VARD. If you're looking for stuff about me specifically, I also on the YouTube channel run Lesson Learned, which is a conversation about Mythcraft. Again, the system that we run. I live stream rules explaining on that on Thursdays, and monthly you can also find me on the Quasi Real Publishing YouTube channel playing Melizog Shaba.
Cool. And I am Dread Pirate Syzer. I am the creator of the tabletop RPG yet to be released, Skies of Fortune, the Sky Pirate RPG. You can find me mostly on Blue Sky at skiesoffortune.bsky.social. also on Twitter, also a little bit on Facebook under Skies of Fortune. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's been a pleasure to have you all and talking about actual plays in the art of performance. And we will see you again next month for a talk about designing and running games for the neurodivergent. And Timbo, I think you might be back for that one too.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
All right, everybody, have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Hello.
Bye.
Bye.